Alright guys, in this video we'll be continuing with the Python tutorials. So we'll be doing an example problem to get the characters from a string. So it will be a way to generate a login name that some systems use, and then we'll do an example how to generate. So we're going to keep this code for later. So it's a two-part problem, so this is part one. So we'll do the username, the way to generate the username, and then in the second part we'll generate the password. So we're just going to, so each student is assigned a system login name. For example, like a university login name that you get when you start university, or you go to a new university, you get a new login card, you have to log into your email and all that. So you have to set up a login name to get on the educational system. So you work at the technology department, you've been asked to write the code that generates the login name for the students. So you have to use the following algorithm to generate the login name. Get the first three characters of the student's first name. If the first name is less than 3 characters in length, use the entire first name. Get the first 3 characters of the student's last name. If the last name is less than 3 characters in length, use the entire last name. Get the last 3 characters of the student's ID number. If the ID number is less than 3 characters in length, use the entire ID number. And then after that, concatenate all 3. The first, the last name, and the ID number to generate the login name. So that's the problem. So I'm not sure if we've done this before, but we'll create some files, or some modules in this case. So pycharm's asking me for a file, so I'll call it login.py. I'm not sure if we've used more than one file, but if we haven't, then this will be a good video. So we'll create a function named getLoginName that accepts the first name, last name, and ID number as parameters, and returns the login name, so it returns a string. So we'll just have a def main here. Actually, we won't have a def main, we'll have a def get login name. We'll pass in first name. Well, it takes a first name, a last name, and an ID number. So we'll have first name, actually we'll have we'll just call it first str, or str1. str1 points to first name. We'll use a string slice as we learned, so it's index 0 to 3. Then we'll have str2 points to last name, slice 0 to 3 as well. So I did this on my own, and I did this. There's an example that I have from a textbook, so we'll try the textbook way first. If that doesn't go well, then I'll just start doing my example. I think both will be fine. But for example, when I did this code, I just decided here I made an if statement if the first name was not, so if the first name was less than or less than 3, or I said if basically if it's not greater than or equal to 3 characters in length, which means that it's less than 3, then instead I wanted to just use the first name. But we'll just go with this this other way here first. We can come back and change that if that's a problem. So then in the for str3 we'll have str3 points to ID number. Of -3 to the end of the string, so -3 to the end of the string. To the index of -3 to the end of the string. And then at the end, after all that, we'll concatenate everything. So we'll say login name points to str1 plus str2 plus str3, so that's one way to concatenate it. I think this example might be missing the logic to use use the basically so what they're saying is if the name isn't if the name is actually not at least 3 characters in length, then use the full name. So we could probably just change it on the fly here. So def get login name, because I think the example code has a mistake in it. So they said that, but they didn't do that. So what we can do is we can say, okay, well, we want to, when we get the login name, so the get login name function accepts 3 string arguments: a first name, a last name, and an ID number. The statement uses a slicing expression to get the first 3 characters of the string. And assigns these characters as a string to the str1 variable. If the string referenced by first name is less than 3 characters long, then the value 3 will be an invalid ending index. In this case, Python will use the length of the string as the ending index. Does it do it automatically? It might. If the string referenced by first is less than 3 characters long. Okay, so I think it might actually be doing this automatically. In my code, I actually wrote an extra if statement to check if it was less than 3 characters in length. So I think, as we discussed before, the slicing. So if the slicing expressions, so if the index is wrong, then it just takes the whole name. I think that's the logic here. Python does that automatically in a slicing expression. The reason is so if you have a last name such as, like, I don't know, 2 letters, let's just say OP. So if the last name is OP, that means there's only, or sorry, the first name is OP, then there's only 2 characters here. So the expression is str1 points to first name, which is OP of index 0 to 3. So 0, 1. So it's going to be missing 2, so I believe Python's just going to take the name as it is, which is only 2 characters in that case, because if it doesn't have enough characters to match the ending index, then it just takes the whole string. I think that's the rule. I kind of forgot if that's the rule, but I think we said that's what it is. Either way, we'll test it and see if that's true, if it's the rule or not. So if you forget something, you can just test it and see if it's true or not. So we'll have another module here. So we can actually just keep it with main. So we'll say def main. So we'll say first name points to input. So we'll say enter whoops, what language am I typing? Okay, so enter whoops. Enter the first name. So enter the first name, we'll have a new line. So enter the first name and then last name points to input. Enter the last name. ID number. Points to input. Enter the ID number. So then we'll get the login name. So we'll say print the login name is, or the username. The username is. Then we'll have do we return a string at the end of that? I think we forgot to. So we'll just go back to the other code that we have for get login name, and we'll just have at the end return login name. Return login name. So this just returns a string at the end of the function. So I'll show you guys what happens if we don't return anything at the end. So because in that case here, if we print something, it's not going to print anything because we never got it to print anything, or we never told it to print anything here in this function. So if we just print it if this is commented out and we wanted to print something, we wanted to print get login names, I don't think it might even throw an error, so we'll just test that. Depends on the language. But in this case, if we just print something, we wanted it to print something, there's nothing being printed here. So we'll try that and see what happens here. So if we want to print this function, the get login, so we can actually just say print, what do we call this? So if we print get login name, is that how we spelled it? Get login name. It's going to take, remember it takes, so in this case it takes 3 parameters. first name, last name, and ID number. So we have to, here we have to, what do we have to do? We have to pass 3 parameters in. So we say it takes a first name, we're passing in first name, last name, we have to pass in last name. So we separate them, the parameters with commas, and then here we'll pass in ID number. Right, so now we have 3 parameters, which satisfies this function formal parameters, and these are the actual parameters. So that's a different language theory, but it's the same thing basically. So these are basically the parameters that you have. So that's from Java. So if they call it, so it kind of applies. It basically applies here. Just it's a different languages theory. It's the exact same thing. So it's called. I don't know what Python actually calls it. I don't think my textbook even mentioned it. I don't think it was the best textbook in the world, but it was. It taught Python pretty quickly, all the core concepts. It didn't say if they called them. It just said arguments. Then it just said, okay, well these are arguments or parameters, and so def get login name. When it's defined, this function get login name is defined. So this function takes 3 parameters, or it takes 3 arguments. And then it said, so now when we call get login name, we have to pass 3 arguments. That's all that the textbook said. The way that Java teaches parameters is that when you create a method, in that case, they call it a method, it's the same thing as a function. In Java, that's what it is. It's so in Java equivalent, and also a C equivalent, which is the exact same thing. They called them basically Java at least calls them this formal parameters, and these ones that you pass when you call the function are actual parameters. So basically, it's the same thing. So hopefully I'm not confusing anyone. Someone out there is like, why the hell is he talking about Java? This is Python. Yeah, pretty much, but I'm just trying to explain because it's kind of confusing the way that Python teaches parameters and arguments. I think if you're trying to learn it, well, you're like, well, do I put the same parameters here in the definition that I put over here? Well, I named them the same thing, right? So I could have just called this first. Well, I could have called this anything. I could have called this like XYZ and said that we want to pass here XYZ. But if I say that I want to pass XYZ to these parameters and XYZ to these parameters, then I'm kind of confusing people, because it's like, well, which one is he talking about? Is he talking about, is the function definition that he's talking about, or the function call? That's where Python kind of didn't really explain which one of those they were talking about. So that's why I mentioned, for the person that's saying, well, why the hell is he talking about Java? Because that's what I'm trying to explain. Java made it more clear that these are the formal parameters and these are the actual parameters. Python didn't make they didn't have a difference between those, so hopefully that makes sense. And that answers the question, why the hell is he talking about Java? Because basically the core concept here is that in both languages, or even a lot of languages, most languages, this is the exact same concept in all language, or most languages. In C, Java, Python, C#, C++, it's the exact same thing. JavaScript, it's exactly the same thing. So that's why I'm saying. That's why I was talking about Java. So anyways, even Kotlin. So what's the point of Kotlin? It's built on Java. Did you know that? Kotlin it runs on the Java development environment. And it's slower. So what's the point of it? That's a good question. So anyways, we just have, we're going to print get login name. We're passing in first name, last name, and ID number into, so I'll go back to Python terms. I'll try to stay in Python terms. So this is the function call. We're printing the function call. Whoops, I think I actually made a mistake here. So I'll put first name here. So that's back to normal. So in this case, we're trying to print the function call passing in 3 parameters. And that should be all, so we'll call the main function at the end. We might get an error in this case. Get login name. Okay, actually, sorry, I think we made a little bit of a mistake here. So the one thing that I'm not sure if I explained is that if we're calling another module's function, in this case, you have to. So that we call this login.py. So that means you have to go. So if you call a function outside of the module that you're currently in, you have to say login.get login name. Should be that. Oh, sorry, I think we have to import it as well. So we have to say import login. And there you go. So that's so all we had to do. I'm not sure if I went over this. I think I might have. I can't remember. Too many videos now. Over 50 in the series at this point. So we have import login. Then we said print. So we have to import the module that you want, the functions that you want to use if they're outside of this main module. If you want to call another module such as login, you have to say, okay, well, I want to import login. That way I have access now to, where are we? Now we have access to login's functions. Because we imported login, which allows us to access login's functions. So then we use the dot operator, so we say, okay, this is the module name, so login, module name. The module name comes at the file, what you name the file. And we reference a dot operator. Then we call the function that we want, get login name. And then we pass the 3 parameters. So if we print this, enter the first name. So I'll just go with the channel name again. So code invest, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. The username is none. The username is okay, so I believe we got none because we had this commented out. So now if we try that again, because now we're returning the string. Whoops, so I have to go back here to that module, click play, click run. So you have to click on main to run. So enter the first name. Hopefully you guys can see that. So we'll just go with the same thing as before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. The username is codinv890. So that's right. Excuse me, so we said we wanted the first name, which is supposed to be 0 to 3, index 0 to 3. So we want the first 3 characters of the first name, first 3 characters of the last name. The codinv, which is correct, and then last 3 characters of the ID number 890. That's correct. So everything's correct. There was the other part that we said if it's less than 3 characters. So if we do that, enter the first name. I'll just do a random name. J-I-L-I, then we'll go with 2. So J-I-L-I 2. So Geely 2, so is that correct? Well, we said if the first name is less than 3 characters, use the whole first name, so that's correct. If the last name is less than 3 characters, use the whole last name. And if the ID number is less than 3 characters, use the whole ID number. So that's exactly correct. We didn't have to do any if statements. I think when I did this assignment, I actually used if statements. So either way works. I forgot about the rule that it takes that if you enter less than the ending index, it takes the whole string. So if you enter less than 3 characters, or less than ending index, takes the whole string. So that's the whole code. I don't think right away we'll be doing the second part. But we're going to be going over some methods, string methods. So actually there's a few of them, and then we'll come back to so we did the get login name. So then we'll do the get password after that. So save this code for later on. So save the files. If you're also coding along, if you're just writing on paper, whatever, save the paper, save the notes for later. If you're just watching, just remember that we're going to be going over the second part of this. It's good to practice if you can. So thanks for watching. If you guys like the video, you can like the video and subscribe to the channel if you'd like for more programming and investing tutorials. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.